brought to you by...
Love is often sold as something soft and reassuring. But beneath the pink wrapping paper and scripted gestures lies an unspoken threat. The fear of being alone, unseen, or doing intimacy wrong. Modern romance has become a performance graded by visibility, timing, and public validation, where affection is less about connection than compliance. When love is treated as mandatory rather than organic, it stops feeling like refuge and starts to resemble pressure, a sort of emotional deadline with consequences. In that space, desire curdles into anxiety, expectations harden into judgment, and the promise of romance reveals just how quickly it can turn predatory. Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. The film Heart Eyes weaponizes romance the same way traditional slashers weaponize sex, by exposing the anxiety hidden beneath social rituals we're told to crave. The film isn't simply about a killer who strikes on Valentine's Day. It's about the psychic violence of romantic expectation itself. Love in Heart Eyes is not a refuge, but a performance, one enforced by culture, visibility, and fear of being left behind. The masked figure becomes a grotesque embodiment of that pressure. Affection turned predatory. Intimacy stripped of safety. Psychologically, the killer functions less as an individual antagonist, and more as an externalized superego, punishing characters for failing to properly love. Valentine's Day, with its compulsory joy and public declarations, creates a binary the film relentlessly exploits. You are either coupled and validated, or alone and suspect. The murders are staged like warped romantic gestures, suggesting that when love becomes transactional or performative, it begins to resemble violence. This aligns with social psychology research on attachment anxiety, where fear of abandonment can manifest as obsession, control, or rage. Heart Eyes literizes that dynamic, turning emotional desperation into physical threat. The film's tone, hovering between sincerity, satire, and cruelty, mirrors the instability of modern romantic identity. Characters are hyper-aware of how they're perceived, constantly negotiating how much vulnerability is acceptable before it becomes humiliating. This self-surveillance echoes Irving Goffman's theories of social performance. Romance isn't just felt, it's staged. Throughout the film, the stage collapses. The mask doesn't hide the killer's humanity so much as reflect the emotional masks everyone else is already wearing, smiling through dread, affection layered over fear of rejection. What makes the film unsettling is not simply its violence, but its implication that love itself has become unsafe. Not because intimacy is inherently dangerous, but because it has been hollowed out by expectation. The film suggests that when connection is reduced to symbols, deadlines, and optics, it breeds resentment rather than comfort. The horror isn't that love kills, it's that the absence of authentic love leaves something monstrous behind. In that sense, Heart Eyes operates as a slasher born from emotional burnout. It doesn't ask whether love is worth dying for. It asks what happens when we're told that love is mandatory, visible, and constantly addressed. The answer the film offers is bleak. When tenderness is replaced by obligation, the heart doesn't break, it sharpens. It's the kind of slasher that understands romance is already a horror genre in and of itself. It just has the decency to admit it. Wrapped in neon pink's heart-shaped iconography and a Valentine's Day deadline that feels less like a holiday and more like a threat, the film gleefully skews modern love while also revealing how emotionally brutal it can be to exist in a culture that treats intimacy like a public exam you're always failing. At its most basic level, Heart Eyes is a holiday slasher with a gimmick. A masked killer targeting couples on Valentine's Day. But psychologically, the film is far more interested in the anxieties surrounding romance than romance itself. Valentine's Day in this universe isn't celebrated. It's a mass social audit. Are you in love? Are you visible about it? Are you doing it correctly? The killer emerges from this pressure like a violent pop-up ad, punishing people not for moral transgression, but for emotional positioning. Love isn't sacred here, it's curated. The Hard Eyes Killer is less a person than a symbol, a walking manifestation of attachment anxiety and romantic entitlement. The mask's cartoonish heart-shaped eyes aren't cute, they're invasive. They don't suggest affection so much as surveillance. You are being watched, evaluated, and judged for how you love. What makes the film especially fun is how self-aware it is about this dynamic. Hard Eyes understands that dating culture has become absurdly theatrical. Characters perform flirtation like it's improv, test emotional boundaries like they're negotiating contracts, and constantly manage how much sincerity they're allowed to show before it becomes utterly embarrassing. The film leans into this with sharp dialogue and exaggerated situations, turning romantic awkwardness into comic tension, and then, inevitably, into violence. Within this world, being emotionally honest is almost as dangerous as being alone. The central relationship works precisely because it resists the Valentine's Day binary. Rather than presenting love as instant salvation, the film allows connection to be clumsy, defensive, and deeply suspicious. This reflects modern attachment psychology, where intimacy is often filtered through fear and vulnerability, rather than a desire for closeness. The characters don't fall in love because it's time. They inch toward it while actively questioning whether it's safe to do so. The slasher framework exaggerates this fear, but the emotional logic is painfully recognizable. Stylistically, the film's bright aesthetic clashes delightfully with its cynical undercurrent. Everything looks like it belongs on a candy shelf, which only makes the violence feel more pointed. This contrast mirrors the emotional experience the film is critiquing. We're sold romance as colorful, sweet, and universal, while privately experiencing it as confusing, alienating, and often humiliating. The jokes land because they're rooted in truth. We laugh not because it's silly, but because we've been there, emotionally cornered by expectations we never agreed to. Ultimately, Hard Eyes succeeds because it refuses to choose between satire and sincerity. It wants to stab the concept of compulsory romance while still believing, cautiously, that connection might be possible if stripped of pageantry. The film doesn't argue that love is a lie. It argues that the way we market and pressure it is psychologically corrosive. When affection becomes a performative metric, resentment festers, entitlement grows, and something monstrous inevitably forms. Hard Eyes isn't just a Valentine's Day slasher. It's a rom-com dragged through a panic attack. It reminds us that love, when demanded instead of discovered, stops feeling like warmth and starts feeling like pressure. And pressure, as any good horror movie will tell you, is exactly how things tend to explode. That's going to be all for now. If you're interested in this film, I urge you to check it out for yourself and formulate your own thoughts and opinions about it. I hope you come share those thoughts in the comments. Let me know if there are any movies that you would like to see discussed on this channel. I always love to hear from you guys, and I do my best to try and respond to everyone. As always, I have put a link down in the description to a physical copy of the film, if one exists, so that you can add it to your collection. Using that link helps out the channel, and that is always appreciated. Furthermore, if you like the video, I urge you to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already. I know many of you watching aren't yet subscribed, so help support the channel. Subscribe. If you'd like to go the extra mile and support the channel even more, we do have a Patreon. And if you sign up for our Rated R tier level, you can get yourself access to the ETF Digital Archive. We get a lot of compliments about the VHS collection that you guys see in the background of almost all of our videos. Well, we have been hard at work slowly digitizing that collection and creating a place where we can share it with all of you. Thanks to the help of the Plex platform, one of this channel's sponsors, we can now do just that. This is our way of doing our part to help preserve that gritty, nostalgic VHS look and feeling before it's gone forever. So as a special thank you for becoming a Rated R tier member, you will be added to our ETF Archive Plex server, so that you can stream our VHS collection from anywhere at any time. It's basically like having a streaming service for VHS, which I think is pretty cool. We also have a Mercari store, where you can go and get yourself a little piece of the ETF archive. While collecting VHS, Blu-rays, and DVDs over many years, we wind up with lots of duplicates, and we unfortunately can't store them all. So on our Mercari shop, we have those for sale. Purchasing those not only expands your collection, but makes room for us to expand ours. All the links for everything are down in the description. Until next time, stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.